Here's researcher Jed Fahey speaking of medicinal plant developments and how they come to a conclusion after researching many different herbs, spices, and greens. And this is a PhD biochemist specialized in nutritional biochemistry. So this is a not easy field to be in, but here's Dr. Jed briefly speaking about his research, which is you will never hear on main Western media ever talked about because there's no money in it. So, but the research out there regarding the immense health benefits from using organic raw materials, greens, spices, and vegetables are amazing. And the research has been done extensively by his team and many other top research universities from around the world, especially in the United States. Let's hear Professor and biochemist Dr. Jed Fahey for a moment.
One of the better ones, pointing to some medicinal benefits. So when we in my group look at plants, we look at their phytochemicals with the idea that if we can identify activities of certain phytochemicals, biological activities, we can perhaps again put some teeth behind recommendations that are made about those plants. That's not to say that I believe we should extract those chemicals or synthesize them and give them as drugs.
I am down there, right there in the presentation that was more than 10 years ago. So we're bringing you inside information because we supply many of these research teams with raw materials because we know where we can get the raw materials that contains the highest phytochemicals on the planet, because the earth is like a chocolate vein. So you don't get the same phytochemicals from a broccoli that is grown, let's say, in Texas compared to a broccoli that's grown in Oregon. They will have completely different phytochemical ratio. One might have only 1% of sulforaphane and the other one contains up to 10% of sulforaphane. So they want a research group like Dr. Fahey and others, they want to have a greens, spices, vegetables that contains the highest phytochemicals, and that's not easy to do. It took us a lot of time to find the raw materials that contains the highest sulforaphane from around the world. That's how we end up in these presentations and learning about these amazing researchers after many years of research.
That's to say that I think they'll give more weight to those of you or those of us who say to people, you've got disease X, you've got condition X, adding moringa leaves to your diet may actually help, and this is the reason why. And so the compounds that we have spent with our broccoli sprout work and now with moringa, we've spent a lot of time on, are called glucosinolates. They're best known for coming from cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, which again we've worked with. And the term mustard oil bomb has been used frequently to connote the following. There's a precursor in moringa, it's called glucomoringin, and it's a thiosulfate glycoside, and this compound is cleaved by an enzyme called myrosinase, forms an unstable intermediate, and ultimately forms a compound called an isothiocyanate, denoted by the, or marked by the NCS group. The R represents a whole bunch of different side chains, and there's a specific one in moringa, and I know that not all of you are scientists or chemists, so I'm going to try to avoid too much structure.
Yeah, I just want to explain here, all these people who are sitting in these presentations are researchers learning from his research. So, because each researcher and his team or her team, they do different research from each other. John Hopkins, Stanford University, Harvard, Columbia University, they do different research and they come up with different results. So that's why they come and they're so interested. You don't find anybody here from CNN or big pharma are coming here to learn about what these amazing phytochemicals that are in the greens and vegetables and spices can do for you. So this is a very tight community, and unfortunately, big Western media are not interested in it, and showing how long these research has been going on from Dr. Fahey and many other researchers that unknown to most of Americans.
So it turns out that myrosinase, this enzyme, is present in all plants that have glucosinolates. So it's present in broccoli, it's present in moringa leaves, and actually pods, and actually stems and roots also. The precursor is water soluble, it's in a vacuole, and it's heat stable, and it's pretty non-reactive. It doesn't have biological activity to speak of. The isothiocyanate is not as water soluble. It is heat sensitive. It's labile, and it's quite reactive. And I'll bore you with one slide talking about how it's active, where it acts.
You know, this is very important here because when we develop our products like AG17 or the next product in development, air pollutant 50% plus detox, we look at the research from Dr. Jed, from Dr. Bill Harris from Stanford University, from Dr. Joel Wallach, who wrote the book called Dead Doctors Don't Lie, from Dr. Bruce and Ames, who discovered the Ames test, etc., etc. We look and we see what type of phytonutrients they're using. Since we are one of their suppliers, we know many of those raw materials where it comes from and which one tested that had highest phytochemicals, and we look at the ratio and how they used it and what is heat sensitive and what's not. That's why AG17 green contains 17 different organic extracts with cold extraction and no heat or solvents or pressure or chemicals has been used for that product in order to be developed. So everything we develop is based on research, has been done already by amazing researchers like Fahey or like Bruce and Ames or like Dr. Linus Pauling or Dr. Joel Wallach, etc., etc. So you need to know these things because it's very important to know why products from lookandvibrant.com or teslanutrition.com or top quality producers for nutritional supplement costs money, especially at holistic doctors, that they can cost a lot more than big block retailers, because big block retailers, they focus on price, not on quality, and most of the product they produce, it's not based on research, and they use mostly chemicals, artificial ingredients, artificial sugar to make their product. And when you see the price is low, you know there's no real phytochemicals focus on quality product and supplements. So when you go to lookandvibrant.com, each product page contains so much information. You can learn about the development, the process, and third-party testing made in NSF certified facility in the United States, which is the highest GMP certification could possibly have for nutritional supplements.
But just as a sort of reminder, when you chew on broccoli or on radishes or daikon or horseradish, what happens? The first sensation with radish anyway is cool and crunchy, and within 20, 30 seconds it gets hot. Maybe you start tearing. It's a lacrimator. Your nose starts to run. What you're doing is you're busting open the plant cells that have both the precursor and the enzyme, which is membrane bound. They come together, they do this reaction very, very quickly and form the isothiocyanate, which in the case of radish makes your eyes water and your nose run. So you do that, but if you cook a radish, none of us usually cook red radishes, but people in Asia cook daikons, Japanese radish, all the time. If you cook a radish, you're counting on your gut microflora, which also happen to contain this enzyme, myrosinase, and they form this biologically active compound. So, sorry, that's cooking. So this is the most molecular slide I'll have, and I don't intend to dwell on it, but just to use it to remind me, to remind you, or to tell you that we know that these isothiocyanates act on a number of key, very key molecular pathways in terms of medicinal effects. One is the so-called NRF2 or NRF2 pathway. This controls 3 to 5% of proteins in our bodies, and is very involved in the cytoprotective response, protecting cells against disease. These compounds inhibit the NF-kappa B pro-inflammatory pathway. Inflammation, as some of you probably have heard, is very much tied up with a lot of disease states, including cancer and diabetes and autism, which we've actually got some interesting work on lately. They upregulate the heat shock response, which is involved with fever, involved perhaps with autism, and again, a number of disease situations. I'm not going to go through these. I just want to point out that there are now, with broccoli sprouts and sulforaphane, that analog of the compound in moringa, there are now a lot of studies looking at NRF2 related outcomes. I've been involved, the ones in red we've been involved very directly with. And then there are a whole variety of studies in which other outcomes not related to NRF2, related to other disease pathways, have been evaluated. Again, we've been involved with them. This one on the amelioration of autism is the one which we're following up on a lot now, and we're trying to put together a trial in Israel, actually, in which we use moringa leaves as an intervention. We haven't gotten it off the ground or funded yet, though. We're just at the beginning phases of that. But I point this out because with all the history that we have in my group with broccoli sprout, sulforaphane, the compound, all evidence that we have is that, moringin, the compound, the analogous isothiocyanate from moringa, acts very, very much the same way. It also comes from a plant. So to the extent that we have funding to focus on it, we have been trying to. Back to the plant in my title line. So it turns out that these phytochemicals have actually been known for a long time, and moringin was identified by a guy named Benny Badgett in a 1964 thesis from Rice University. He worked with one of the premier glucosinolate guys. He never published on it, but we were able to get hold of his thesis and did some really interesting work identifying this compound, moringin. I became aware of the plant in a Hortzai publication from Manny Pilata, who was at the time at the University of the Virgin Islands in St. Croix. And he pointed out, and this is, again, one of the early articles in the peer-reviewed Western literature, point out some of the medicinal benefits from traditional medicine. Pretty much none of them had been underpinned by decent clinical trials at that time. I became friendly with Manny and have remained so over the years. And so, although there's a lot of information now, and there's been a lot of work, especially by religious organizations like Church World Service, there's been a lot of work on the use of moringa as a food source, especially in the tropics.
Okay, I want to mention something here very briefly. Lately, we found a research showing that there are some African nation, they know about moringa, African tribes, not nation. And they also use moringa for girls who get pregnant who want to lose their baby. They take high amount of moringa and they end up losing the baby. So please make sure that if you are pregnant, don't take too much moringa. I would keep it very low as much as possible. But what's amazing also, that they found out that women who are breastfeeding, when they take moringa, they increase their breast milk. So it has a two-edged sword, need to know that. And so Dr. Jet Fahey, maybe you never heard of this research, but because we supply different researchers with raw materials, we end up learning from different researchers from around the world what they are doing with their research regarding many different plants. So because there's no research can know everything. There's no one brain that can read and learn about every researchers around the world what they're doing. So luckily throughout our trips we are finding some health nuggets that other researchers don't know each other or never heard of each other research. Sometimes we end up sharing their research and their their contacts together, and we help connect them together, and that's how we get more kind of connection in this field, and we get more inside information and respect from working with these researchers to keep working with us and supply them with the top raw materials around the world, because we have passion about what we do, and we love nutrition and nutrition science, and that's why we're in it. We're not in it for profits or money. We're in it to help make a difference in people's lives anywhere we can.
Especially in situations where there's frank starvation or very prevalent undernutrition. It's been used in nursing situations, in weaning situations with young children, and a small amount, because of its very high protein content in the leaves, goes a long way. So it's quite promising as a food source, but it's also quite promising as a medicine.
Whoa.
Or I should say as a medicinal. Mm-hmm. This is just another image of the trees growing not in agroforestry really, but in isolation, planted out. So there are something like 300 traditional medicine indications for moringa. I look at a number like that and I say, gosh, either that can't be, or if it really is, we've got to start someplace. So what I hope to do is share with you 9 or 10 conditions that I think now the evidence is starting to build to support.
Did Harvard...
So here we end up this video.